Welcome, everyone, to the fifth and final installment of the New Agents Trend Series, a series of online conversations hosted by Phocuswright, exploring the impact of generative AI, autonomous agents, and digital ID on the travel industry. I'm Mike Coletta, Senior Manager of Research and Innovation at Phocuswright, and I'll be joined by our three panelists, who I'll introduce in a few minutes. First, the quick background on these online events. There's 5 of them for the year, and they align with the 5 topics in our Travel Innovation and Technology Trends 2025 report, which published in early February and is available for free on our website. You can scan this QR code to go right to it. I'll admit it's getting a bit dated already, given how fast everything's moving, but I still highly recommend reading it for the full picture. As I mentioned, this is the 5th and final online event for the year. In part 1 in March, we covered the impact on company operations. In part 2 in April, we covered the impact on the in-destination experience. Part 3 in May was on the impact on travel distribution. And part 4 in July was on the impact on travel marketing. So in essence, we've talked about the impact on important individual areas of the industry. And today is where it kind of all comes together. We'll be exploring how generative AI and AI agents will impact the entire traveler journey, with digital ID serving as the primary enabler, and whether the industry is ready for this new era. All of these sessions are recorded, and you can catch the replays on YouTube. And before I introduce our panelists, as I've been doing, I just want to take a few minutes to set the stage and provide a little bit of context for the discussion. So here are a few stats from Phocuswright research on traveler usage of generative AI. These are from our recent chat plan book, GenAI Goes Mainstream report, where in our latest consumer surveys, we found that 33% of US travelers used GenAI for either planning or experiencing their trips in the past 12 months, and a little lower in some of the key European countries. And this is a good chance for me to point out that I've seen stats saying up to 80% of consumers are now using GenAI for travel. But you have to be careful when you see these stats as to what's being measured. Was the survey of active travelers or just the general population? Was it a large sample of travelers of all ages and backgrounds, or segmented to younger users or those who are active users of GenAI? And then what was measured exactly? This is a really tricky question now. Is it usage of AI platforms like ChatGPT for travel, use of AI overviews or AI mode on Google, use of AI inside travel apps? So we try to take the widest view possible across all use cases for the most definitive numbers, and we're confident in the representation here. So these numbers may not be eye-popping, but we do see disparities among age. Indeed, usage can go over 50% for younger generations, and all these numbers are rapidly rising now that Google's AI mode is expanding and putting AI search right in front of a lot of people right inside Google. And even given how fast ChatGPT is now growing. But this is all enough for us to recognize that Gen AI is indeed going mainstream for travel. I think we can all say that. We also found that about a quarter to a third of travelers across the US and Europe already want to book travel either inside a Gen AI platform or by letting an agent or assistant like ChatGPT's operator go out on the web and book for them. Again, around a third in the US feel that way. There's similar numbers in Europe, although France is actually the highest on the chart on the left. And I'd say this is all quite significant in these very early days. That's a lot of expectation building up. And booking with AI isn't really possible yet, other than very limited cases like hotel booking inside Perplexity, or if you can get a computer use agent like Operator to do it successfully. So there's some progress already, but the big problem is there are huge roadblocks to making booking via AI happen seamlessly for all the different components of a trip. So it's important to recognize that a disconnect will exist between travelers' expectations and what's actually possible using AI for booking until some of these issues are fixed. So that's a good segue to get into the discussion. I'm excited to be joined by 3 people who are truly pushing the envelope at the intersection of AI, digital identity, and travel distribution. So today we'll be hearing from Jamie Smith, founder at Customer Futures, where he's one of the top thought leaders writing about the convergence of AI with digital ID, which he often refers to as empowerment tech, and I'll let him explain that. Anka Su, Chief Growth Officer at Chain for Travel, which is building the Camino network to bring decentralized AI-ready infrastructure with identity built into the travel industry. And Stu Waldron, who since the 1970s has been directly involved in building some of the systems that still power the travel industry today. And he's currently the executive director at Open Travel Alliance, which is in the midst of reorganizing into the Open Travel Foundation to help standardize and modernize travel data as well as infrastructure. And Jamie, we'll go to you first because you work horizontally across a lot of industries, but pay very close attention to the travel industry. I believe it's because the more broken something is, the more opportunity you see to fix it. And things are very broken here. And you write as much as anyone about the essence of the topic at hand, which is agentic AI and digital ID and where they collide and converge. So just like you did on our panel a few months ago at Phocuswright Europe, which is something that I also recommend people watch, that video is on YouTube. Please set the stage for us by telling us what empowerment tech is, which you write about so frequently, and why organizing travel components around the traveler's identity is really the only thing that makes sense to try to fix the fragmentation that exists in travel, and speak to humans who will be using this in the short term and AI agents in the somewhat short but medium to long term.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mike, and thanks for having me. Look, I think there's this idea of digital identity is growing in fashion, but also in tech circles. It's kind of really starting to take hold. This idea of not just carrying my physical documents around, but can we digitize them and can we put them in a system somewhere to improve the customer experience, to maybe improve conversion or lower fraud. But I think there's another shift going on, which is, this thing I'm carrying around in my pocket is no longer a phone, right? This is a supercomputer that makes phone calls. And because we have this technology that we can take with us, these digital identity objects, assets, blobs of data that can prove who we are and facts about us, well, I can now carry them with me, right? Rather than having to log into another system, prove who I am, fill out another form. So digital identity is starting to become reusable digital identity. In fact, portable digital identity. And so I think that's the starting point for this. And anyone who's worked in travel, seen travel, or in fact just traveled knows how fragmented and complicated the identity part can be. If we wanted to fix, I don't know, identity checks in banking, you could probably just get a bunch of banks together and they'd have a good go for most of the population. That's impossible in travel, right? I have to go certainly to cross a border, to fly. I got to get to the airport. I got to go to deal with the loyalty scheme. I got to get to security. I got to go to the airline. I got to deal with maybe the retail. Maybe I'm buying something on the plane or before or after. Got to get to the hotel. It's a naturally decentralized experience, and so there was no way we could build a centralized identity box in the sky for all travel everywhere. So this idea that the only 360-degree view of the customer is the customer starts to really make sense when I can bring my preferences, my history, and my verifiable identity with me. And so identity is starting to not just be a really interesting way for businesses to add value, personalize, and so on, but it also starts to smooth the experience. It starts to be a way, I think we've not just done digital transformation on the side of the business, right, on the side of the travel platforms. We can start to do digital transformation on the side of the customer, right? We can start to have the individual present data about themselves. So that's kind of the first part. And you mentioned empowerment tech, because I think this is about empowerment, a bit like we got reg tech and health tech. I think there's a whole new market emerging. In fact, I think it's going to be worth billions of dollars, where we can transform the customer side, the traveler side of the experience with tools that they get to bring their identity, but also bring preferences and history and all that kind of good richness that's right now locked up in those databases, whether it's in the OTAs or the airline, who know I want the window aisle, but I can't use it elsewhere. And now, when you collide the data, the context with the identity, and then you make that agentic, I can say, look, just check me in for the flight. I know we talk about agentic commerce and buying things, but so much of it might just be travel disruption, alerts, notifications, changing the itinerary. That's where I think it gets really powerful. So I'll pause there, but I think empowerment tech is going to be not only an interesting innovation. I think it has the potential to change the way we think about data supply chains, change the way we think about customer experiences, and change the way that individuals interact with travel brands, and how we can stitch together not just this kind of seamless passenger journey, but one that's actually orchestrated by the customer, not just one brand sitting in the middle.
I think an important distinction is that your identity belongs to you, right? It's in your hands, it's in your control,
For sure.
and ideally would be the same with your agent who's acting on your behalf.
Exactly right.
So that's good context. Let's go to Anka next, just to talk about Chain for Travel and the Camino network. Talk about what you're building and what it means for powering travel in the agentic era, including, of course, how digital identity fits in and what you're working on there.
First of all, thanks for having me. Camino Network is a industry operated by an industry consortium, blockchain-based network for the travel industry. And Chain for Travel is developing that at the recommendations of the consortium. It provides a trust infrastructure and has over 200 travel companies already supporting it. Now, the network, a blockchain network, comes with several elements that are very important for the future, especially in an agentic era, by design. First of all, it has the network native connectivity, because in the blockchain network, each participant, each company can talk directly to each other. And we have taken that even a step further and provide the ability to search and book offers through the network. So you connect once to the network, and then you're connected directly to all the partners in the network. You don't need to do another API connection. So that makes life a lot easier. Secondly, it comes already with wallet authentication, which means we already have digital identities in the blockchain network. And we're taking that also further, because now, as you know, probably in Europe, they are introducing digital identities for each EU citizen. And we're now looking how we can connect digital identities that are government issued with the identities that with wallet identities that we already have in the network. Plus, blockchain-based networks come with native digital payments. Everyone hears of stablecoins. It's a great topic in the States, but also in Europe, and that's baked into the technology already. So we already have the ability to pay and settle via digital currencies, stable currencies. And last but not least, all those three elements, connectivity, identity, and payment, make Camino Network the rails, or make it the infrastructure for an agentic world. Because in an agentic world, we will have to distinguish between good and bad bots, for example. And we can do so by identifying a good bot by the delegated identity that he has from a traveler, for example. And then on the other side, we will have a lot of agentic searches, right? So the look to book ratios might explode. And we have already a mechanism in place for Camino Network where you can monetize as a supplier on the search traffic.
Great. Yeah, so that's helpful context for everyone to have that overview of what it is you do, and we can revisit certain things that you do in other parts of the discussion. But next, let's go to Stu. So Stu, let's say that we get digital ID in place for humans as well as AI agents. And, this whole new infrastructure is helping travelers, particularly digital ID, share their nuanced preferences directly with travel providers, as well as through their personal AI agents, which are then shopping on their behalf, which should mean that travelers are then getting dramatically improved itineraries and product suggestions, and then they're ready to book. So tell us where you see the breakdowns occurring at that stage, and of course, work in how universal open offers fits into this puzzle. And offers was something Anke mentioned as well, so we can have her talk to that too. But start with the breakdowns that you see occurring when travelers are ready to book, having gotten all that information from their AI agent.
Sure. For everybody, you can mostly think about it as an extension of an existing problem, just from normal Google searches, Bing, and the others, that discovery of a travel service or product is a lot easier than taking action on it. So most of the scenarios today is that you see something on a search screen, you have to be passed off to somebody else to actually take action on it. Another entity that knows the complexity and can navigate the path to whatever product you want to buy to get through the booking and payment process, through that and provide, the product that you want to purchase. The advent of LLM, you saw the previous charts, and yes, a lot of Open Travel members are reporting, the impacts to them that have a noticeable move away from traditional searches to LLM-based searches. And I was also just talking to an association of golf course owners yesterday, and they have many of the same concerns. They've already suffered disintermediation under the current search paths, and then they go to a consolidator to book something, wanting to know what is LLM going to do to their business. And they're rightfully concerned that how is this all going to shake out about when somebody wants to take action on discovery? How is that actually going to work? Will the provider, the hotel or the golf course or whatever, maintain any kind of connection with the customer? As we go through a shared nothing type architectures in the cloud, there's a lot of hops these things can take. So a lot of people are asking these same questions. The issues we see coming in it is that it's just fine for discovery to lead on this. Yes, find the products, but how to successfully negotiate this as an AI agent all the way to booking, there's a lot of interesting challenges to face. Some of those are security, particularly data security. There's not been a lot of talk about that. The personal identity is great. We got to nail that down. But even who is asking the question, what are they allowed to see? What are they allowed to act upon? Whether you're talking about somebody who is a proxy for you as an agent or other entities. I'm working with a group of revenue management companies, and we've gone back to even looking at our elements and our models about when we say person. We had to go back and scratch our heads. It's like, well, what do we mean by person? Because a person may not be a person anymore. And what are the other type of attributes and things we have to sort out? So there's a lot of work between here and mass adoption of A to A that's not only able to discover and pull together all the relevant data to your trip experience, it's actually acting upon it. So Ank has kind of touched on what's going to be a big one, single form of payment and reconciliation of payment after the fact. If you cancel the spa portion of your hotel, but your car rental or ground transportation stay in place. So we have a lot of this to look at. So what we're considering at Open Travel, we've been publishing messages and standards for 25 years now, but the implementation of them has varied so much, it's still quite chaotic out there. And that's part of the barrier to change, is that complexity and chaotic nature of how to get through a discovery and booking process, as everybody took the standards, implemented them in their own interpretation or for their own needs, causing everybody to write custom code when they need to connect to all these different suppliers, or if you're a distributor or if you're a channel. I was a VP of architecture at one of the major GDSs, and had a front row seat to the type of manpower investments we had to make to deal with all this complexity, because each and every connection was different. So what we are working towards is the creation of the Open Travel Foundation, because we believe the path forward is through open source, meaning reference implementations or outright distribution of capabilities that are non-competitive, to say, how do you get an offer published? How is security handled? How is identity handled? How is the network issues handled? How is caching handled? How is other types of offer management handled? We're pulling the industry together to say there's a whole lot of infrastructure that has to be put in place to really pull this off. and realize the promises we're all looking at. It's just when it comes down to identity, when it comes down to security, when it comes down to an e-wallet or other things, we have to implement these things consistently. We cannot deal with the level of chaos if everybody does their own thing. So I do want to say, rest assured, when Anka and I talk about offers or other things, there will be tons of flexibility that it's your product, your price, your rules, your workflow, your way. So we believe the suppliers will not be constrained in how they sell their product. It really is looking at this as a digital supply chain. Define your project, define your product, define your description, define your rules, and it'll be up to a community-supported means to deliver that to the end channel you wanted it delivered to and how they execute on it. In other words, we're just going to put in the digital supply chain and allow everybody to compete and follow their own dreams and needs and everything and how they want to display their product.
Yes, I think the idea here is trying to move to this kind of push model rather than a query model, right? If you have
Yes, absolutely. Again, from the many companies I've worked for, know absolutely pounded by availability calls. It's the thing like if you have, kids in the back seat, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? What's the price? What's the price now? How about now? How about now? It made sense in the 70s and in the 80s given the technology we had to work with. We went to a polling model, but it doesn't make sense anymore. As a digital channel, you should be publishing your product exactly how you want it with your branding, and the channel, the purchaser, has all the information they need to make that decision to purchase. So we will turn this around and turn this into a publishing model and greatly lower the cost of publishing so that tour operators, scuba shops, just all kinds of travel experiences could get published in the mainstream, which they can't today because of the high cost of, the IT required to connect to them. So it's going to be an interesting journey that we invite everybody into discussions like this because there's a lot to talk about. How do we get from here to there?
Yeah, so you have the sheer volume of queries that agentic AI could unleash as all these agents are exploring options on behalf of their customers, and they're just hitting all the systems. Is this hotel available? Is that hotel available? What's the price? Different configurations. So you have that increased volume. Then you just have the idea that agents should be able to kind of easily shop across offers, suppliers, to easily find the right product for the traveler.
We've actually tested this somewhat. We have a way where we model our stuff that we can model the same offer more or less as a graph database type view versus just a simple document storage or other things. And we've tested that with various forms of relevancy-based scoring to say I could go through hundreds of millions of offers relatively quickly to narrow down to the several thousand that could be relevant to my Coletta, and then do more traditional deep dives and everything of those. What are the ones that would actually be useful for my Coletta? Personalization goes end to end and omni-channel. So the technology is fairly well understood. It's really pulling the community together and taking action on it.
Right. So it seems like that's what's needed, as well as digital ID on both sides, to say, especially the supplier side, that these offers are valid. These are from this company. We can be sure of that. And then on the traveler side, this is actually a person who's interested, and here's all their preferences. So it does seem critical for just enabling that whole vision. Okay, so is that going back to what you're building?
Exactly. Yeah, I want to compliment Stu actually. First, of course, we have the search phase, and there we need to decide whether we actually go into push or AI agents will do pull for a while, right? So they are going back to scraping, actually, to the scraping phase that we had years ago. And then secondly, once they did that, you said that, Mike, people want to book. So how do they actually book? And that's where we are providing the connectivity in the network. So every supplier or every distributor that comes onto the network, it's one-time connection. 2 to 10 days maximum of connectivity time, development time. And then they are available in the network and they can be pulled, or we are thinking about a push model as well. So both. And if you imagine and you put on the famous MCP, now an acronym, I hope the audience has heard it, or A2A models on top of that, that would make life so much easier for the suppliers and distributors, because an AI cannot simply dream up a flight or a flight seat, right? So that's the risk that we have when we are working AI to AI, right? We see that every day, looking at our work with Chat or Perplexity, etc. So that's what we are building in the backbone. And today, the connectivity is based on identity, is based on the wallet identification of a supplier or distributor already, and it's verified. We already have a customer, know your customer, know your business process in place. And so it's a B2B network. And so the players, the participants can be sure that the company on the other end is legit.
Yeah. Jamie, your thoughts on all that?
It's this tension between a few things. I think we can all very clearly see this flip that's coming, which is, we've needed these centralized systems to kind of poke and prod the service, as you say, Stu, kind of what's the price, what have we got, so they can package and serve and repackage to a right individual and hopefully grab the eyeballs. I think that's going to be reversed when individuals can now go out and discover, and it's not going to be search anymore, right? And I think there's the optimism about that new model, and it's going to take longer than we think, but it will be fundamentally transformative when it arrives, or when we start adopting it. However, that's in tension with so many roadblocks. Stu rattled off security, privacy, scalability, digital trust. And I think that point Anka just made about, know your business, is that kind of quiet bug in the system that, the cost of committing fraud now with AI, let alone AI agents, is nearly zero now. Right? We can spin up a song, spin up a document, spin up a video in real time. I can also spin up a real walk around in my hotel and have a bug in the sink. Right? So the ability to spin up organizations that don't really exist, tours that don't exist, locations, hotels, views, I think is fascinating. And that's before we get to the agentic bit, which is, it is a real place that you can go, but it's not really your agent booking it, or it's not really the hotel's agent you're negotiating with, right? We're struggling, I think, with know your business flows today. We struggle with know your customer flows today, and we're about to build agentic commerce on top of, possibly rocky foundations. That said, the upside of getting it right is huge, and the big players who care deeply about identity, Apple and Google, and some of the large, I'd say typically Web 2 platforms, are starting to get their act together on identity, and start to get their act on how do we prove who these actors are in this play, who you're really dealing with, and this idea of counterparty trust. So I guess it's the caution with frothy excitement of the shift, with there's some hygiene I think we need to put in place. Now, what is I think I'm quite optimistic about is, one of the reasons we've not solved it's taken a long time to solve, because proving who a business is really hard. And actually, often what you're doing is checking a registry of a government, but also seeing who the people are. Like, who are the directors of that company? Who set it up? Who are the people behind it? And with portable digital identity of people, we can start to have more assurance that the organization really is who we think we're dealing with. So agents are going to get identities. It's going to be KYA, not just KYB, right? And when we marry those things together, know your agent, know your business, know your traveler, that's when agentic flows can really start to kick in. And Google's announcement yesterday on having a payment protocol to do that, and I was actually just looking at LinkedIn and I missed it, that I didn't realize that AP2 protocol from Google includes X402, which is an agent-to-agent stablecoin payment flow. So it's going to have verifiable credentials in it. It's going to have a native stablecoin integrated into it. And I think things are only going to get, really more interesting when we can apply digital trust, peer-to-peer payments, peer-to-peer credentials, this idea of counterparty trust. I think these can be the rails on which the new travel networks are going to be built. But as Stu said, discovery and search are going to be disrupted, I think, quite fundamentally. The big question, I know you've been working on, Mike, is, what does it mean for the OTAs? What does it mean for the platform providers who are trying to connect the demand with supply? So exciting. So much more to pack into this in the hour we've got. But I think I can see a path through to, once we build some verifiable trust, then the agentic stuff sits nicely on top.
Yeah, a lot.
I want to just add a sentence to what Jamie said. I think it's very interesting what Google does at the moment, as Jamie described it. And here, blockchain comes into play. They are building their own blockchain, actually. And blockchain is the trust layer that we need in the agentic world, I believe.
Yeah, so we can try to get to that a little bit more. Even the role of Google, I didn't even have on the agenda per se, but they are putting a lot of the elements in place to be involved more than ever in the full traveler journey in the agentic era. But I want to make sure we have time to have Anka and Stu in particular. Jamie, I'm sure you have thoughts as well, but address the elephant in the room a little bit, which is that there have been many efforts to democratize travel distribution in the past, and none have really made a big impact. In a lot of ways, the existing intermediaries have only gotten stronger. And I would say this is, a result of established relationships, entrenched interests, GDS incentives, how various parties actually benefit from price obfuscation, including even on the supplier side, who agentic AI, again, we can go to that discussion of who it stands to benefit more. But question would be, make your case for why you think this time will be different and what it is about digital identity and agentic AI that might enable that.
Yeah, I could go first. Been looking at this for a while as we were envisioning this Open Travel Foundation approach, which will be truly disruptive to this industry. Just looking at it case by case, and I put a couple on our website as well. But as an example, some of the players in today are doing message transformations, and they're distributors known as consolidators, other things. So they take various oddball APIs, put out their own proprietary APIs, and that's of use to some people either for looking or booking. There will be a transition because ultimately what we are talking about is a universal open offer treated in a consistent way, but that doesn't happen overnight. So part of this is convincing those that basically have a business model built around the chaos of today, convincing of them, no, there's good business for you going forward, because we'll have to move beyond message normalization to offer normalization for quite a foreseeable future, given the efforts to change backends and other things. So for some, it's kind of what they do today, but doing it in a way that once they've done their work, as in an offer normalization, it's all open and common beyond that. But that's just an example of several entities that there is a business opportunity. You can say there is a threat to their current business model, but there's also lots of opportunities. And I'm quite familiar with the GDSs, having worked for pretty much all of them at some point. It's the same way that the good debate to have on the social channels is how are they going to pivot? There's actually been quite a lot on that lately on LinkedIn, just about Sabre. But it's like there's going to be some interesting discussions on who's going to pivot. And, for example, looking at music and video, who's going to be a Circuit City and not make it? Who's going to be a Best Buy and at least survive? Or who's going to be an Amazon that saw the opportunity, came in from nowhere and zoomed to the top? That's what's going to happen in these disruptions. For channels, lowering the cost of publishing an offer would give them orders of magnitude more content to sell, more content to aggregate into an experience. So it's a little easier discussion with them that their costs go down for some of the complexity being removed, and their opportunity for more to package together goes up. And the same for the suppliers. The advantage to them is their branding, their rules, omni-personalization goes end to end. So the pros and cons for everybody differ between their role in the current supply chain. So it's a wonderful debate, because predicting exactly how this is all going to pan out is, well, just subject of debate.
I th
Go ahead,
yeah.
Anka.
I think we enter a new phase of transformation, as we did with the introduction of the internet, and you stated some examples too. And that provides, again, a level playing field for all participants. And there are some discussions around how OTAs will evolve, how suppliers will evolve, because in theory, you can have direct relationships between agent and suppliers. And on the other side, we not only have with AI and new technology at hand, but also with, again, blockchain. And blockchain is a collaborative technology. As I said in the beginning, it's a network. Everyone communicates with everyone. And we built that governance-wise on the foundation of a consortium. So it's the first step towards a organization like you, Stu, are aiming at as well. And I think we have now a different time that makes it possible that, yeah, as you said in the beginning, we might move into more a democratic way of working together.
Yeah, and Jamie, you had something to add there too?
Well, I got two things to add now. So, first to pick up on Stu's point about, who winners and losers really. And I think Amazon coming out of nowhere, you could look and say, actually, they looked at the fundamentals of being online, being on the web were different, right? They had unlimited shelf space. And so they could optimize for delivery in a way that Best Buy, Barnes and Noble, and the other brands who are selling books couldn't. And I think if you apply that to travel here and agentic, some organizations, or rather with web, there were some organizations, Amazon was web by default and then had new different economics and different go-to-market and so on. And I think it's like trying to add AI in now, right? If your OTA was built in 2008, right? Trying to add agentic kind of over the top is going to be challenging. I think there are going to be a new generation of platforms that are agentic by default in the same way that Amazon was web by default. And it's going to have, yes, unit cost economics advantage, but it's also going to have data flows, verifiable data in a way that some of these other platforms are going to struggle with, I think. So I think there are going to be some, overnight winners in maybe 3 years' time that are actually just betting on the unit economics and the advantage of being agentic from the start. But I don't just mean agentic to say jazz hands, AI, it's all going to be great. I'm saying agentic will be built because they understand wallets, they understand credentials, they understand peer-to-peer, they understand verifiable data. But then the point about Anka about a level playing field, I worry that actually it's going to do the opposite. I think, there's a question came up about how do hotels express, how do they participate in this agentic world? How do they put their inventory up online and so on in this new world with MCP or whatever? My worry is, that the metas of the world, the WhatsApp kind of channels are going to have agents in a channel we already use.
Yep.
Right. And so distribution wins. As much as we hate it, distribution wins. Right. Everyone uses Teams. We all hate it. It works. And everyone has to use it because you got a security advantage and it's just in everyone's devices already. So I think having an AI agent in WhatsApp where I can change my flight with a couple of conversational interactions, I think that gets really interesting because they've got the engagement. Potentially, they've got the trust because they'll be able to add verifiable credentials and data stores and stuff. So I think I'm worried it's not going to be a level playing field. I think I'm worried that the animals are going to go to where it's convenience will win, right? We hate Amazon for a bunch of reasons and pricing and enshittification and the marketplace being a challenge, but we're all wanting stuff next day delivery, right?
Wouldn't that be a moment to say, well, let's get together as a segment, or as the airlines already do, right, with IATA and their NDC One Order initiative,
Absolutely.
and push that even further, and really use that moment to make some headway against, maybe not against, but versus distribution, right?
I think it's and not or. I think it could be and not or. But I think the where's the traffic, where are the eyeballs, where's the tension is going to be where demand is going to be created.
So let me throw in just some of the the other reasons, to get back to your original question, Mike, why now? I would also say money left on the table. Some of the data I've pulled up is 2019, just, when was our last peak of travel and everything, the U.S. Commerce Department showed $1.1 trillion of travel-related spend in the U.S. alone. And it's actually from Phocuswright information, everything that said, okay, of that, less than 20% of that spend went through what we think of as traditional travel channels now. That's 800 and 900 billion dollars of unmanaged travel, to which you could provide all the things we're talking about here, what all the potential customer experiences are. Yeah, there's a lot of money left on the table because we all just keep talking about pretty much air, car, and hotel. Well, there's a lot else to travel than that. So there's huge financial opportunities for what Anka and was just and Jamie were just talking about. So money will drive this.
Yeah, as I'm thinking about it, I like what you said about, or what it made me think as you were talking before. The work to be done is to convince the industry about the upside on the other side of this, which is what you're just getting at now, too. But by like, there's a lot of temptation to maintain the status quo, but there's all these opportunities on the other side. So making clear what those really are: cross sells and upsells, reduce costs, etc. I still wonder if that's going to be enough, to get the industry to kind of move as a whole. I guess the other side that I see would be that there really is just overwhelming demand from travelers. Like, everybody's using these agents. These agents are understanding travelers at a very nuanced level. And those agents are then trying to make all these requests into the industry infrastructure, digitally, sometimes making phone calls or sending emails or text messages when they need to. But that the demand will just necessitate the change. I still fear that things could just remain broken. The status quo just could remain. You can do all your planning inside ChatGPT or whatever. And if you want to book, maybe there's an integration for this, but not for that. Maybe you can, request connecting rooms, which is a big one in hospitality. It's just it's not even possible in certain brands, no matter what. But, lower floor, and even trying to enable that idea of the connected trip. If my bag is delayed, can it get to the hotel by itself? If my flight is delayed, can my rideshare be adjusted automatically? It's like, it's all nice, would be great for all of us. But those incentives are still the question in my mind, and where I guess we all have a lot of work to do to try to, push our way there. We got about,
sorry to just
we have
comment on that.
left, a few more topics to get to, but yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You want to
with regard to the connected trips, I think we always connect travel with a lot of IT work. However, as at the beginning, now we have technologies at hand that makes it so much easier. And especially for the connected trips, if you have a smart contract where the elements of the trips are interconnected, and then the train is delayed, then the agent or whoever could go out and automatically rebook, or search for an offer and rebook on the network, for example, on Camino network. That could be all automated. So it shouldn't be. The technology, I think, is there. We just need to look at it.
I want to make one point I feel quite strongly about around this whole AI business. And I know we've got other stuff to get to, but I think it does frame it. AI is a probabilistic technology. It's not deterministic. I mean, it can't do specific things every time, all the time, right? It's taken the world's information and world's access to all inventory and everything else and shrunk it down, compressed it in a way that we never could before. And it's fantastic. I can have it on my phone. I can have a nutrition coach on my phone, right? And then when we ask it for something, it kind of expands it back out and gives a statistically very, very good version of what it should be. But there are gaps. It has to fill in the gaps. So a hallucination is. So where should I go in Europe to travel this summer? This is a world-class technology we've never had before. You can't, Google would come up with 10 links. But with this technology, I can point a camera at my fridge and say, what should I have for dinner tonight? Like, Google can't do that, right? A bunch of links can't do that. So a probabilistic technology is brilliant. Applying it to problems like book this flight, redo this thing, is going to take a while. It's going to be errors in there. And so giving it payments, giving it identity there's a lot more to do. When there's travel disruption, it's going to be brilliant. It's like, we should probably do this, and it's going to be great. Here are the 6 options, and which one do you want? So applying it to the right problem is going to be really, really important. And we can't just say, sprinkle AI over it and it's going to be fine. I think we should make sure we're deliberate about how we're applying agentic technology to what is, as you say, Mike, a very fragmented and broken problem. And as you say, Stu, a huge value creation opportunity because there's so much money on the table.
Yeah, I'm happy to take the time to talk through all this. I think it's really at the heart of the whole topic. Some other subtopics I wanted to get to were, implications for loyalty, maybe talking about A to A and MCP and ACP and NL web in a little more detail, and how it kind of aligns with or integrates with the new industry infrastructure that we're talking about here. Impact on in-destination, and then just addressing concerns about digital ID for abuse by governments or corporations, or hacking, which I think are common concerns of a lot of people. And then any comments on any of that? Anyone feel strongly about addressing it?
Taking loyalty programs, it's been some time now, particularly in hospitality, them wanting to go more with personalization, away from carrying something debt on their books on loyalty type points. But what's prevented them is the current chaos that they can generally only implement personalization on their private channels. What all we've been talking about now can actually enable omni-channel personalization. I can provide Mike Coletta a personalized offer through whatever channel Mike decides to use. It's not a technology problem. Between the identity and everything we're talking about, it's all quite doable. So that would potentially be the personalization. And there was some good questions on here about volumes and then the number of offers we've been talking about. Yeah, they're going to be huge because as offers become personalized, there's going to be orders of magnitude more offers out there than today. So some interesting technology discussions to have. But the big change is probably seeing a lot of providers moving to personalization and away from current loyalty approaches.
I think it will be a brilliant word for travelers, right? So they have their digital identity with their travel history. They log on to a supplier or an OTA, or let's have an airline. And they are frequent traveler, for example, with Lufthansa. And before, British Airways wouldn't know it. But now the traveler can actually share that piece of information with British Airways. And British Airways can decide whether to do an extra offer, a personalized offer that convinces the traveler to fly with British Airways the next flights. So I think that's the world we are moving into. And that's, for both sides actually good, because for airlines, for example, the missing piece for the personalization that they aim for in NDC was always the data. And now with digital identity, that could be delivered, which would be all pull, right? So we would all be pulling the offers. And also for the traveler, of course, I mean, we would get a hyper-personalized offer. And they probably in the future, it will be our agents to do that.
Yeah, and I'm glad we paused on this, because the way I think about it is my agent should be maximizing value for me. That could mean using my current loyalty programs, which would need to be connected to. That could mean saying you should sign up for this program or this card and then book this hotel, and really give me very specific advice. And that could lead us into who does the agent really work for and whose interests is it representing, which I know Jamie would love to dive in. If you want to take a minute on that, and then we'll keep going. I want to try to, well, I think we'll take the full hour for the discussion, and then we'll do Q&A. And I just want to make sure we get to practical advice for implementation. What should businesses be doing, now, and then visions for next 5 to 10 years. But yeah, Jamie, do you want to jump in on that?
I had my answer, and then you said what business you should do now, and my brain's full of things I want to talk about. No, it's brilliant. I want to get there because I'm sure everyone listening also wants to get there. Look, I think on the, how do you know it's acting in your best interest is a very layered problem, but it's back to my point about fundamentals and infrastructure. because if we don't have good ability to delegate authority today, which we don't, right? We don't. It's very hard for me to say I definitely can act on behalf of this other individual, right? We find that very hard to do in the real world, and it's going to be very, very difficult to do with agents. There's some technologies coming to help solve that delegated authority, but it's been a problem we're trying to solve today. So not only is this a good bot or a bad bot, all the signals there, does it carry authority from me to act on my behalf? But then the recommendations that it's giving me, what should I do, rebook this hotel or that hotel, whether we like it or not, organizations, businesses have a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders to maximize shareholder value. That is a legal responsibility of organizations to maximize profit. If my agent is being run by an organization that says, of course you should book this hotel, it's the best one, I'm going to get a wonderful experience, and it'll be optimized for me and the business, and we'll make money. However, sometimes the recommendation should be don't go on holiday, you can't afford it. Or don't go this route because actually, there's a bunch of reasons that people in your community or people who look like you, sound like you, might not want to make that trip, right? So we need to be really careful about in whose interest the agent or the agentic platform is acting. There is there's a lot of legal work going around agents around fiduciary AI. So your doctor and your lawyer have a fiduciary responsibility to you and to the community, but to you, right? They act in your interests. And I think we're going to have new agentic AI, the identity flows, the data, the trust, all the security, but we're also going to have, if nothing else, transparency on not just the kind of decisioning of why this recommendation over that, but in whose interest is the AI acting, and how does kickbacks work? What is the commercial model? That kind of thing. I think we're all going to get fabulously seamless journeys, wonderful journeys, but it is going to optimize for the outcome for the business, and we just need to be careful about that, I think.
Yeah, important, has a lot of implications for how things will work going forward, which is at odds with the way things currently work, once again. So yeah, let's get into practical advice, tips, takeaways for how people listening could or should start to implement digital identity, agentic AI, open infrastructure, open standards. And I would say let's try to focus on the benefits. And I can just say, what I've tried to outline is not being responsible for personal information with digital identity, and offloading the risk there is one, and reducing fraud could be another big one that should translate into reduced insurance premiums and IT costs. And then, on more of the upside, being able to offer that extreme personalization, hyper personalization, better customer experience overall, and better cross and upsell opportunities to try to, that's what I've tried to capture succinctly, but yeah, what do you all have to add to that?
I think going practical, I would like to tell the audience that in Europe, we have the European digital identity coming in 2026. And the last large-scale pilots are underway. And some of them are still open if somebody's based in Europe. And there, the use cases are focusing on connecting identity with payment already. There are some examples that are out already that show that. Actually, Amazon is one example. And on the other side, the next phase will be agentic. So the delegated authority, delegated identity, that will be the next step, because that's important for large merchants as well. So I think it's to get practical, it's good to single out a pain point or an opportunity in your organization. May it be proof of age, for example, or for hotels, it would be check-in, of course, and then see how talk to us and how that use case, that proof of concept could be implemented.
What I would add is that there are immediate things to talk about. For example, we're talking about work groups around Overture Maps that was just produced. and some active work we can take right now of what kind of ancillary information do you want with a location ID. But more than that, I would just ask everybody to join the conversation. I believe we're a fair amount of agreement. This is going to be driven by open source. And so there's multiple conversations going on trying to set the direction and sort out, what is our journey over the next 2 to 3 years? What should we do sooner? What can we do later? And find those conversations, get a seat at the table, get a membership in some of the various organizations, but just don't sit there and wait to see what happens. Join the conversation, and there's multiple ways to join that conversation and make sure your voice is heard and that you're part of setting the direction going forward.
Great. Jamie? You're muted.
Apologies. I think 3 things. I think number 1, start, which is exactly Stu said. I think learning by doing is the best thing rather than kind of waiting for it to drop out of the sky and say, oh, that's what we should do. Because I think every organization is going to have to adjust in a way that's going to be challenging, in the same way that the introduction of the web, the introduction of mobile changed the way and where and how and when people shop and engage with brands. But I also think start now. It's going to take longer than we think, but we've also got that extra challenge where every week, every 2 weeks, something pretty astounding comes out that we didn't have 2 weeks before, right? The sand is shifting under our feet, and I think trying to feel your way through it isn't the way to do it. I think building, experimenting, prototyping is the way to get going. But the third thing is speak to experts, right? Speak to Mike, speak to Anka, speak to Stu, speak to me about people. Where is the signal in the noise? There's so much going out there. You can't just follow your LinkedIn feed or download another ebook. I think there are some real credible experts, especially around EIDAS and what's going on with travel, the Phocuswright conference and Mike's writing, and what Stu's doing at Open Travel. I think there's a ton of expertise out there, and I think these folks can do in weeks what might otherwise take you months, right? So I think speak to the experts and get started.
Great. Perfect way to wrap up this portion of the conversation. I know we're all able to stay on, right, for some Q&A. So let me just wrap up. I just have a couple of slides to show. You all should really join us at the Phocuswright conference, as Jamie said, in November. This year's theme is Game On, and we'll be discussing how AI is fundamentally rewriting the rules for how companies must operate just to stay in the game, let alone to win it. And so you can still save $300 if you register by September 30th. And then just as I mentioned, some of the research I shared today is from our latest report, Chat Plan Book, GenAI Goes Mainstream, which has lots of other valuable data points and benchmarks in it, is available for purchase if you're not a research subscriber. And if you are attending the conference, you can get $100 off the report with the code New Agents, no space there. All right, we're right at the top of the hour, so if anyone needs to drop, appreciate you participating in the discussion today. But if there are any questions, any of you, Anka, Stu, Jamie, if you saw something in the chat or the Q&A, let's just jump right in and address that. I haven't actually monitored it too closely, so I'll take a look. But was there anything you wanted to jump in on? Still reading?
Yeah, I'm still looking for Ivan asked me a good question, and now I'm trying to find what the question was.
Okay.
The thing is, we got a lot of good questions.
Yeah, the last one is maybe work from the bottom. Aren't we looking at the world where Google and OpenAI sized companies define the rails all industry will run on? I think that's a very valid question, right? And it comes back, in my opinion, to the point that we need to get our act together in the travel industry. We need to get together and solve those challenges jointly, because otherwise the others, the big ones, will do that for us. But if we join forces, we can be as big as some of the big players. Yeah, we are an $11 trillion industry.
That everyone participates in, right? Most people on some level, they do some kind of travel somewhere. It might be in country, but they might hire a car. They might visit a friend, they're going to go on a trip, right? They're going to have some in destination experience. And you know, everyone feels it. It's one of those relatable sectors, right? This isn't just, you know, dry insurance or pensions or, you know, healthcare where the condition might not matter to you, but everyone's kind of felt this in some way, whether it's just the one-off summer holiday you took last year, or, you know, your frequent flyer for business or whatever, or you're someone who's a, you know, car rental platform gold because you're doing it all the time. We all feel that there's opportunity to well, the money on the table thing that Steve mentioned, but it's not just more seamlessness, it's better experiences, more trusted experiences, more personalized experiences. And I think that those are kind of platitudes. I know that it's still it's a very high level thing to say, but the opportunity to bring for customers to bring their data to that conversation is what's changed, right? Whether that's agentic or otherwise, I think individuals showing up with preferences, individuals showing up with verifiable data that they didn't have before. Look, I'm already Marriott Bonvoy top level. I'm already Hertz Gold. That should inform a conversation rather than have you stayed with us before, sir? I'm like, I was here last week, you idiots. You know? So I think that's where I think there's a real opportunity to change the experience for travelers, not just to work out exactly where we can bridge some gaps in data that are broken right now.
So Ivan, I found Ivan's question, and Jamie, you touched on this a bit, but it's looking after basically monitoring the AI agents who pull together your total experience for you, ostensibly using something like relevancy-based scoring or pulling it together. Who holds them accountable? And what I'll quickly add to it, what the published model implies is that if I put out an offer where I put out my product, my price, and my rules, those rules are going to be evaluated by the selling agent. And so we're already projecting we'll have to have some means of, you know, instrumentation and other things, and a means to qualify and rate the accuracy of these various agents pulling it together. So I don't say I have all the answers. I'll pass it off to you, Jamie, but there will have to be some sort of instrumentation. And, you know, some of the things we have in mind of what we publish out there are services. There'll be validation checks, there'll be competency checks and others. But yes, that's a critical question, is holding the selling agent accountable for a whole host of things, whether we're talking about a human or an AI agent. It was the basis of Ivan's question.
I had a follow-up for you actually on personalized offers, because I'm just not clear. When you're talking about a publishing model, it sounds like you're sort of you're pushing out standard offers, I guess. But then we're talking about this one-to-one personalization based on your identity and your preferences, et cetera. So how do you go from, you know, like how are you publishing a personalized offer, or is it that components are brought together for that traveler?
Well, as I said, the rules, or if you prefer, terms and conditions, are included. Just think of it as a container, hence the, you know, electronic distribution chain. Is it could contain in there, here's the terms and conditions, including this offer is for my Coletta only, to which I'm skipping over the complex part about how do I know I'm talking to my Coletta. But, you know, we can sort that out. But there's not going to be really strict limitations on how you present your product, what branding. The price is interesting because this gets into granularity of offers. There really is only one price, and you could have price modifiers to say, okay, if my B&B is combined with ground transportation, I'm willing to knock some off the price, because with ground transportation, my no-show rate drops dramatically. I mean, there'll be things like that. But you could put in your terms and conditions that this offer is only valid with a persona, or it's only valid for an individual. And that's what I mean about the instrumentation we're going to need on the seller's side to make sure they abided by the terms and conditions. It's an interesting challenge. I think a completely solvable one, but it's an interesting challenge.
There's another question from Ivan, said, what about after the booking? What happens next? Who's going to help the traveler with issues? Who guarantees the quality of the services booked? I think that's an interesting one, because I mean, I think it's the supplier, whoever the end booking is with, but you also have this idea of comparing an AI agent to a real travel agent who does bear the responsibility for, the recommendations and what's booked. So any thoughts
This
on all that?
this is a perfect example where we're bringing the previous mental model of what it looked like, right? I had a travel agent to give me the brochures and then go, well, here's the thing you should buy. Here are your tickets. Good luck. Thanks very much. Right? Oh, you need to change the date, or you can come and do that. It's a very transaction-based thing, right? We need the eyeballs, the traffic, they come to a funnel. We're optimizing for the sale. Once you organize around the individual and not the moment of transaction, and you can see all the before, the during, and the after, right? And I don't just mean getting back from the holiday and thinking about expenses and so on, but I mean, like, part of holiday is, let's imagine it's holiday travel and not business or whatever. But like, part is the build up, like the 2 weeks before, we're like going on holiday. This is gonna be super, right? And some people are going to be control freaks and like, I'm going to go and look over every review and check the routes and be very, very specific about it. Some people are going to be like, I'm going to pack an hour before I have to leave and get there probably late, maybe just make the flight, right? So we've got different personalities traveling. Once you organize around the individual, you get a very different perspective on what the experience should be, right? And in that agent example, the control freak wants the cheapest, the fast, the best, the most recommended, right? Go and twiddle and kind of choose. The relaxed outsourcer might say, just go, where should I go on holiday this year? Okay, that looks good. I'm gonna go for it. After I have booked, there's so much, it's like buying a car, right? We optimize for the sale and then we're gonna forget about everything after the transaction. And to your point, Stu, there's so much money on the table for aftercare and after service. Once I've bought the travel, all the prep and the planning and the tweaking and the looking forward to, and maybe I'm in a group and there's a whole bunch of multiplayer things, right? The group activities that need to happen, coordination, orchestration. That's not the OTA's job. That's gonna be an agent job for me and all the people I'm traveling with. How are we gonna get there? How are we gonna, sort ground transport? But how are we also gonna get together and plan the trip or whatever? So I think post sale is going to be one of the spaces where, by reframing the experience around the individual rather than the transaction inside a matching platform, we open up a whole new world of experiences, revenue opportunities, cross sell, upsell in a way that we couldn't imagine before because we're just trying to sell for that moment where you buy your say your flight and you're like, oh, would you like a, would you like a, would you like a, would you like? And they've got that moment to grab you and they try and upsell you on everything in that moment because they know once you leave, that's it, done. And then, I show up at the gate to fly. And actually with my agent, it's my agent, right? I've got this new interaction mode, this new channel, this new way of interacting with the customer that's mine and not just having, SMS offers pumped at me. So I think that is to go back to Ivan's point, I think post sale is where there's a $1 billion market opportunity to step in to help people as they plan, as they prepare, all the other stuff that everyone else forgets.
Do you see it as being the same agent that we are, planning our travel, booking our travel, helps us with servicing issues, acts as a concierge in destination, helps us put together the video after to share on social?
I reckon I'm gonna have a suite of agents, right? I'm gonna have an evaluation agent. I'm gonna have a read the T's and C's agent, right? We don't read terms and conditions at the moment because they're designed for lawyers by lawyers.
You'd still have an orchestration agent, I think,
Yeah, for sure.
working with other agents.
Yeah.
Just what I would add is I think there's going to be intense competition for that because of all the big hotel chains or the airlines or the cruise lines or anything. They really want to be your agent. They really, really want to be your agent.
But they won't because I will have my own agent or I will have my own suite of agents and a orchestration or agent, as Mike said. And then I will go out and look at, or the agents are going out and do the heavy lifting for me. And I just, maybe they ask me, do you want to go left or right? But it won't be the agent of the hotel that will advise me. I think we will have agents ourselves that look at the whole landscape and then make the best decisions for us.
I agree. Just meaning that this is one of the more interesting places. There's going to be intense competition for who's providing more value. And the philosophical question, do I want an AI agent attached from all the providers or what? It's We don't know where this is going, but there.
It's going to be a mixed economy, right? Some people are going to say,
Yeah.
look, I love this hotel chain and I'm going to go with their agent because I always get a 7 out of 10 experience. I'm not going to get a 5. I'm not going to get a 9. I'm going to get a 7. And I know exactly where to do and what my experience is going to be when I'm in Berlin for 2 days or whatever, right? So that might be the thing that works for you. And that is to your point, Stu, about whatever value matters to the individual. For others, where they do want a cross-provider experience, maybe it's going to come from the OTAs, right? They got the inventory, they got the access, they got the relationships at the moment. Maybe it comes from a new brand that's got the eyeballs like TikTok. We
Or a
just
corporate agent that you're asked to use when you're in business travel.
Yeah.
100%.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
you're forced to use. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All the corporate travel is should be a slam dunk for this disruption.
Yeah.
Partly because the
Absolutely.
UI UX is awful, but partly because they're optimizing for business rules and not for the traveler who wants to tack on 1 day for pleasure, right? But the expenses policy doesn't work, and well, now my agent just handles that. So
Yep.
I think these are the untapped markets because it was just too hard to deal with inside a corporate firewall. I think one way everyone should think about it is there's AIs inside organizations that are helping orchestrate or coordinate, but they're still kind of doing it to the individual because of the APIs and the MCP services they've got available to them, versus AIs that are going to show up on the customer side, which, by the way, will be higher quality data, more trusted, more personalized. I said at the beginning that the only 360-degree view of the customer is the customer. It is the traveler, right? I'm going to be able to bring more context. I'm going to be able to provide much more signal than trying to guess what I might want. And I think that can only come from the customer side, not, hey, thanks for staying us. Do you want to stay 10 more times? No, because I went once for a funeral, and you don't have that context.
Appreciate you all staying on. The only other thing I saw, actually, two people asked about the World or WorldCoin initiative. Anybody want to comment on that? Yeah. Anybody wants to touch it?
I have a lot to say, but I don't know if don't want to jump in front of other people if they have a view.
Maybe you know the most about it.
I think again you got to follow the money, look at the incentives, look at the structure of it, and I think there's a really good paper if you're technically inclined. This is about proof of humanity, right?
Mhm.
Not an identity. It's not an identity. It's a proof of humanity. It's an identifier for sure, but so is my loyalty card and my PAN number and my credit card. They're identifiers. Um, it's about proof of humanity. If you're technically inclined, there's a really good paper by the founder, the inventor of Ethereum, called Vitalik Buterin, and he wrote a paper on proof of personhood. And there's several ways to do it. One is have community do it, like we all vouch for each other, but that takes ages. The other is you have a big centralized system, which is also not scalable, and you have surveillance problems. And the last one is biometrics. And as soon as you're into biometrics, you're into challenges around, it's fine as long as it works until it doesn't. Aadhaar's got 1 billion people's biometric information in a big central platform, and it's been hacked a bunch of times. That might be important to you as a design, it might not be. So I think we got to think about whether biometrics is the right answer. And I know it's all cryptographically hashed and decentralized and stuff, but the question is whether we should get to proof of human through biometric, which I can't undo that. Right. Once you have my iris or my fingerprint, then those are indelibly available, and we got to be really careful about how we handle that for vulnerable populations. And Sam Altman's objective with it is for universal basic income, right? Once AI takes all the jobs, it's so that we can know who the people are to pay them so they can spend money in the economy, right? That's kind of the incentive. We just got to be cautious about, what these identity systems are being set up to do and why. So I think it's another interesting model. We should be cautious about some of the design choices.
Yeah. Feels inevitable. We're going in this direction, right? Everything's going to be digital, essentially trackable. So I'm aware that the one word we probably should have said and we didn't was self-sovereign ID. But we talked around it, the importance of That's essentially what empowerment tech is, right? That you own your data, that it's stored somewhere, you know, that's kind of not reachable by anyone but you if you don't want it to be. So probably a good place to end on you know, one of the key points of going in this direction, and as we proceed, you know, like you said, being thoughtful about which paths we're taking. So I thought this discussion was great. Appreciate you all participating and staying on. There are two questions I'm just going to address really quickly. Any stats represent Asia usage in GenAI in travel? I've seen some of those, but Phocuswright doesn't have them. We hope to soon do some surveys in Asia. We're pretty much just on US and Europe for now. And how can hotels become visible to AI agents like SEO? What's the new age version of this optimization? We did a whole webinar on that in July. So just go check out that webinar. But thank you all for participating again in this webinar. Again, thought it was great. Appreciate your time and hope to see you all in November at our conference. Thank you, Anke, Stu, and Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having us.
Bye.